Hello and welcome to the Neo4j live stream. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and thank you for joining. Hello, Chris. How is it going?
Hi, Alex. It's going great. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you for joining. Thank you for presenting today. We have another special Neo4j episode today. We're going to talk about the Neo4j Ops Manager. Which has been released a couple of weeks ago and is now available. So we'll do a little tour around what it is and what can be done. Before we dive into that, I wanted to take the opportunity and quickly mention Nodes 2022, which is our all developer conference. Online conference taking place in November this year, and the call for papers is open. So if you are interested in presenting, if any and all topics are welcome, go to neo4j.com/notes-2022 and submit a proposal for a paper. It could be anything. It can be intro. It can be high level stuff. It can be very, very deep technically. That's what we're looking for as well. We're looking forward to your submission. So have you watched a notes before, Chris? Before we dive into, have you taken part in one?
I only joined Neo4j in 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. So I've never had the benefit of any face-to-face nodes. But Nodes 2021, yes, I did. I consumed some of the talks. I didn't manage to present anything, but I did enjoy virtually attending some of the talks. So it's a very valuable experience and highly recommended.
Yeah, it's only online. So Notes is online. So that's what makes it great. I mean, obviously with the pandemic, it was kind of like made sense, obviously, to make it make it so. Yeah. But with all of the global graph community, I think it makes even more sense to try to get everybody together. And like you said, it's always nice to talk to the community, to engage with other people, and to see how many people actually are working with Neo4j and graph technology. So that's definitely a key aspect of Nodes 2022 as well. And like I said before, we do Neo4j Ops Manager. I'm happy to have you here, Chris. Maybe before we dive in, you say a few words. I don't know if you had this in your deck as well about yourself, what you do, and who you are, and then we can dive in to today's session.
Sure, that's great. Thanks, Alex. So welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as Alex said. My name is Chris Shelmerdine, and I've been with Neo just a little over 2 years. I work as a product manager in a small but effective team of product managers in the database, the Neo4j database team. And we look after the whole database and some of the peripheral outside utilities as well that are provided, like the Cypher language, Load CSV, the admin utilities. And my primary focus has been in the last year and a bit on bringing a new product to market, Neo4j Ops Manager, but also looking more widely at the administration surface and operability of the database and making some improvements over time in that space. So on that note, let's dive in and look at what we're going to cover off quickly today. It's only a short session, so I will do my best to get through the boring slides and get to the exciting demo.
This is a little bit blurry, Chris. I don't know if we can do anything about it. It's at least on my end. I don't know if anybody else can confirm. But we have. I can read obviously because it's big enough. But it seems.
Yeah. Let me just see.
Like.
Is that any better?
Not by much.
No. Okay, it may be because I'm presenting off a larger screen.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't have to go through too much of the small text and the message will come through.
Shall I try to present the deck from my
yeah, we'll give that a go if you like. Let me stop sharing for a second.
Okay. Let's do that then. It's a bit blurry. Yeah, okay. Chat confirmed. So let's see if I share my screen, that will be any better. How does that look if I now... Oops, wrong chat, wrong thing. All right, here we go. I think this looks better to me at least. And yeah, I think that's better.
Okay. Well,
Let me drive the slides, and you just tell me when I should advance, and then we...
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
great. Thanks. I'll do an analysis afterwards of what's going on. So, as I said, what we're going to cover off today is looking at why we're building Ops Manager, what the reason is for a new product. We'll do a quick demo of what's in our version 1.0, which was released back in June. We'll look at the vision for the future and the near-term roadmap as well as we know it today, and then allow time at the end for any questions and answers that may come up. So if you could go to the next slide, please, Alex. So in terms of types of user of the Neo4j database, we have a very large and active community of developers. We're doing as much as we can to improve that experience through the drivers, through the browser, which is going to be rebadged as Query in our new workspace. And people build a wide variety of really great business and personal and development and R&D apps on top of the database using those tools. We also have our data scientists that are using our graph data science or our GDS product to do the investigations and uncover the hidden meaning in the data sets that they have. And we have our data analysts and others that want to visualize the graphs that they've built and they're working with using our Bloom or our Explore product, as it will become. And in that way, we get a great way of doing natural language query over the top of the graph and visualizing it nicely. So these are communities of user that are well served today. There is another type of user which we want to focus on, which are the administrators, the DBAs, the DevOps folks, whatever role they're now sort of falling within. And these are the people who are responsible for setting up the database and ultimately, in a large enterprise, running it as a production instance with high availability for the company they work for. And there is no, up to Neo4j Ops Manager 1.0, there was no official product to help them with this, no one central product. So as well as that challenge of not having a product, we also have an increase in data size. Our data is growing exponentially throughout the years, and we've gone from gigabyte databases to terabyte databases, and we're now knocking into petabyte databases, even in the graph space. And I know over in the relational world, they've gone beyond petabyte into exabytes, and some are even going beyond the exabyte limit now. So Neo4j's response to that is scaling out with our cluster solutions in the enterprise and with our fabric products again in the enterprise to allow supersized graphs to be put together. There's also pressure on the IT leaders and the DBAs to reduce the time it takes to bring projects in, to bring them in on budget, to run more databases concurrently, to have better productivity. And skilled DBA resources are tight and expensive in the labour market. So they want to make life efficient and effective for these DBAs. So as I said, there was no single product. There are solutions that the administrators use today. They could use third-party or add-on monitoring tools. So for example, a lot of customers will put a Prometheus endpoint onto the metrics and build their own Grafana dashboard. But potentially that requires setup, integration, separate licenses or cloud subscriptions, maybe even support contracts. And the resulting charts or reports that they present are missing that Neo4j context. So they have to stitch together the cluster together to get all of the charts to show the lines for a cluster all in one place. We also offered labs products like Halin in the past, which was the predecessor or the forerunner, if you like, to Ops Manager, which was great point solution, but it wasn't really product. It was on a best endeavors or a reasonable endeavors by by people that had another day job, and they did their best to provide support for this labs product. The main surface today from the database is command line interface and the Cypher language. There is a great variety, an array of capabilities that we have there in Cypher and on the command line with the Neo4j admin utilities. But it's quite complex. You need to understand the graph concepts, the development topology, and for somebody who's brand new as a DBA to Neo4j, the learning curve can be quite steep and tricky. So to summarize, there's no single place for monitoring, administering, and operating the Neo4j estate if you have more than one Neo4j deployment. And the DBAs expect to find something to help them do this job. So in a perfect world, at the push of a button, we'd want a tool that would allow us to monitor all of the databases, clusters, and instances that we have running, to be able to manage those through security, through cluster configuration, through database configuration, to automate the mundane tasks like scheduled backups and other activities like that, and to evaluate what's going on and to, over time, make recommendations for how to improve the performance and maximize the value of the Neo4j databases that we have in the organization. So the solution that we bring with Ops Manager is a pre-integrated turnkey solution. So we've got some basic dashboarding of metrics out of the box with 1.0. It allows us to monitor more than one DBMS at the same time. We only obviously display one on screen. We'll see in the demo in a short moment. And in the future, we want to add built-in intelligence. So alerting on top of particular metric going above a certain threshold, and maybe even making recommendations for what to do to address that particular problem that's arisen. So what we gain is improved reliability, makes it easier and quicker to find what's going on and to see when there's an outage. Increased productivity for the DBAs, they can get their task done quicker and more simply, and in time, optimized performance as well. Sorry, I keep forgetting, Alex, to ask you to move forwards. But that's probably enough of the slides. So if we jump now into demo, there is one final slide before I do the demo. And for those of a technical interest on the call, I just wanted to talk very quickly about the architecture that we use. We've gone with a 3-tier architecture where we have a user interface, which is delivered as a standard lightweight web app, which communicates with a server application using GraphQL. And the plan is to make that GraphQL available as a public API in the future so that could be integrated into your own solutions. We have a persistence, and of course, because we're a database company, we use Neo4j database to persist our monitoring and our administration information. And then on each of the hosts that provide or that are hosting a Neo4j instance, we deploy a small Go program called the NOM agent. And that interacts over a secure gRPC API with the server, and then can perform both database level and operating level monitoring and administration tasks. And then there are some principles and feature frameworks around metadata-driven intelligence and loose coupling, etc., to underpin it. But why don't we jump across to a demo? And Alex, I don't think you're going to be able to do the demo, so I'm going to...
No.
What I'm going to try and do, hopefully it's not too fuzzy, is
maybe if you, I don't know if you can reduce your resolution. Usually full HD works well.
Yeah, is that fuzzy?
Let me see. Yes.
Right, bear with, I will try and change the screen res. Talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Yeah, so that was cool, and that was a good overview of all of it. So I think people might be interested in the architecture a little bit more. So I don't know if we can explain it a little bit more, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the demo for sure. So I think that will make it much clearer, and then will obviously show also what the possibilities are and what the capabilities are for sure, and what you can do with the Ops Manager. So
right,
we'll see.
Let us see Is that still fuzzy?
Unfortunately, yes.
Mm. I am running out of ideas. That's set to full HD resolution.
Hmm.
So
What browser are you using?
I'm using Chrome.
Using Chrome. Okay, it should be
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Uh,
it's like bad low resolution kind of thing. It's looking
yeah.
yeah.
I wonder if it's a setting video. Hang on. Has that made any difference?
No.
No. Okay.
You're sharing from your second screen. You said.
Yeah, well, I'm sharing from the main screen. The second one's in portrait. What I'm going to do,
Ah.
Alex, is we're going to try something here. And this is real live. I've sent you a URL. Do you want to fire that up on your machine?
Yeah, let me give me 1 second. Okay.
And then if I stop sharing, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is when you connect to the Ops Manager server, you get the browser, and I'm just going to try and remember what the password is because I cheat and have it cached on mine. So this really is live. And hopefully Ops Manager should be able to. Right, I will send you the password. So the username to sign on is admin, and I'll just drop the password across for you. Those are zeros, by the way.
All right. Admin, you said.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so we're going to do a wing and a prayer on this one. So when we sign in, this really is fun. When we sign in, we land on our home page. And in this particular example, we've got a menu over on the left of the various activities that we can perform. And then we have a visual representation of our estate. And if we zoom in a little bit, and I think there are some zoom controls on the main dashboard panel, we can see that we're monitoring two different DBMSs at the moment. One of them is a cluster that has 8 instances, 4 cores and 4 read replicas, and one is a single instance on its own. And that immediately gives us an at-a-glance view, and we can see everything is good, everything is online. If there was a problem with any of those, they'd be highlighted in a different color with a different status message, and you'd be able to see immediately where there was something when you sign on to Ops Manager that needs your attention. So if we also see on the top bar as well, it says CS Cluster Online right at the very top in the middle. That's a drop down that allows us to choose which particular DBMS we want to work with. So let's leave it on cluster for now. And then from the side menu, if we choose metrics, this will bring up our basic dashboarding. And straight away out of the box, we can see we're on the cluster. We're looking at the last 30 minutes worth of data that we've recorded. And we're looking initially at our host metrics. We have time ranges that we could select for 24 hours, for 3 days. I will say this is a test system, and if we select 3 days, we might be waiting a while. So we'll leave it on live just for now, but when we run on more powerful equipment, it performs a little bit better.
Yep.
But we can see here our CPU usage, our memory usage, and if you, on the memory free chart, bottom middle, if you sort of drag around an area, you can select part of that and zoom in. So if you click and hold and drag, you can zoom in and let go, and it will zoom in to particular time. So if you find a spike that you're interested, you can zoom in and see a bit more of that detail. And then at the moment, it's double click just to reset that back to normal. So that gives us an immediate view of our host operation, and we can see, there's quite a lot of memory fluctuation. We can see one of the members, CSC1, or the core member one host, is running with quite high CPU utilization. If we go back up to the tab bar at the top, we can see the instance metrics. So we can switch from host metrics, top right, to instance metrics and move away from looking at the machine where Neo4j is running into the actual Neo4j database instances themselves. And here we can see the more familiar heap memory usage information. We can see information about the page cache effectiveness, the hit ratio and the usage ratio, the memory buffers, the disk usage. We only sample disk usage every 30 minutes, which is why it's sparsely populated here. And then other information like bolt connectors and garbage collection information. So for our 1.0 release of the product, this was an initial set of a few metrics that we thought were high value and of most use to people to keep an eye on what's going on in the system. And then finally, if we scroll back up to the top again, we can jump into database metrics as well. And in the database metrics, we get to choose which particular database we want to look at. So if we click on the drop down where it says databases to the top left, or just under metrics, that's the one. We can look at the different databases here. So we could look at bench 3 or bench 5, for example, which is where I've got some benchmark. I think I've got some benchmark data running. And we can see activity that's going on those various machines. And in this case, I gave you the wrong information. There is nothing going on bench 5 at the moment. But it allows you to switch between the databases. But say you're on this particular screen and you go, actually, from the very top menu, I don't want to look at the cluster. I want to look at the single instance. You can quickly switch across to another machine to monitor. So if you click on the drop down, is it being a bit slow? Sorry, top middle.
Instance metrics. Here we go.
Yeah. So right at the very top of the screen, sorry, Alex, where it says CS cluster online.
Oh, here we go. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Yep, and choose the CS single. Mm-hmm. So now we'll look at the other system that we're monitoring. We're straight away back into the instance metrics, but for another system. Yeah. So this is one of the key this is highlighting really for the monitoring, the basic, just looking at metrics. Some of the benefits that we get above the existing solutions, which is it's straight out of the box. All the cluster stuff is pre-joined into the same charts for you. But most importantly, you can monitor multiple systems at the same time, whether you're using the app or not. Halen was great as a labs product that you could bolt into, say, the desktop, for example, but you could only ever point it to DBMS, and it would only ever give you data whilst you were using it. With this, it's running silently in the background with our complex architecture. So that's a whistle-stop tour through metrics. I'm keeping an eye on the time because we lost a little bit playing with technology. We can also look on the left menu at some of the other options. So if we looked at status, for example, this allows us on our single instance to see the DBMS and the instance. And then there's a little filter icon top left of that. You can click on there and say show databases as well, I think, or include databases. And that shows you databases, some of which look like they have a problem. They've been dropped. Now, this is an interesting one that you wouldn't normally be able to see what database had been there in the past and no longer is. So this is our history, our auditing capability. And with the filter that we can sort of display just databases with errors or just databases that are good. For those administrators that are used to the command line utilities, if you click on the top right, you see where it says table. If you click on table, that gives us a tabular view. So if you're more comfortable working in tables than necessarily working in hierarchical views of graphs, then we can see effectively what show databases would give you if you ran it on the machine.
I was almost saying if you are more comfortable working with tables, then what are you doing in the stream?
Absolutely. But some administrators that are, there's some DBAs, bless them, have to deal with, Oracle, SQL Server, MongoDB, Cassandra, and Neo4j. And they're just used to a consistent look and feel, and most administration tools will present the data in a tabular form. So we provide that as an option, but I personally believe, and we can talk about that in a little bit more detail now in security, that the graph is a better way to visualize this. So from the left menu, if we choose security panel, for example, in Neo4j database, the enterprise edition, we have role-based access control, which gives us an incredible amount of control over what the users can and can't see within the database and can and can't do. And this, again, at the moment is just a tabular view where we can see the users and the roles they've been granted. And what we could do here, we could click the new user blue button in the top right. And then we can just, in username, if you typed in Alex, for example, set yourself up on the system, generate password just underneath there will generate a nice memorable password for you. And then you get the options, the standard options, which is should the user need to change their password, whether they're active or disabled, and so on. One of the features that I'm really keen on preserving in here is using the tool for learning as well. So if you click the show code button just towards the bottom right of this screen, you actually get to see the cipher commands that would do the equivalent that we're going to do through the Ops Manager tool. So if you then hit the create user button, you'll get the user will go off and be created inside the single instance. And it should refresh that list. I think it's lovely case sensitive sorting here. So it's a great example of how to use the search. So if you click on the little search button and type in Alex in lowercase, it will allow you to see the Alex record. So that's a free text search over any column on that particular table. And same with roles. We could set up roles, and then we could also set up privileges. We unfortunately don't have time to go through the deep dive on RBAC. It is, sorry, role-based access control. I do jump to acronyms if I can help it. But the graph visualization here is something I'm very passionate about. That if you're able to and actually get to think about how the data for the privileges of security are stored inside Neo4j in the system database, they are stored as a graph. And so the ability to display users and roles as two different colored nodes on a graph with the lines between them showing which user was allocated to which role would be really great to help people understand, hey, what's this user got, rather than thinking about it by reading through the table. But you could then take it even further, rather than just as a read visibility, actually have it as an administration surface. If you wanted to grant a role to a user, you just draw a line between two nodes.
Yes.
Or if you want to revoke a role from a user, you just click the line and say delete.
Yep.
Or revoke. Sorry, not delete. That's the incorrect syntax.
Yeah. I think that's super interesting. I had interesting live stream last week with Alex on GitOps, which is a tool he created, and this is also touched user access and privileges and like this, and it was, it gets out of hand quickly, and lots of users, lots of access, lots of access to software, access to data and stuff like that. And if you have a view that makes it very easy and very obviously much better than this table where okay, who has access to what and who should have access to this, and is this still relevant for this group to have access to this other system? This is very powerful indeed.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about it in roadmap, but obviously 1.0 we only had limited time and we could produce an initial set of features. There are lots of ideas that we've got on the roadmap for how to improve this.
Yeah.
One of them, obviously, this is looking at role-based access control. So how the system sets it up is you assign the privileges to a role and you assign the users to the role, and the combination of the user's roles show what the user can do. But to provide a user perspective of this, to actually show for this user, for these database objects or these databases, what do they have access to graphically, would be fantastic. So there's lots of fun things we can do. The remaining three things on the menu, alerts just gives you any pieces of information which might be relevant for you to be aware of on this particular single instance. And the alert that's up there at the moment is the fact that the agent that I've got running on that single instance is 100, but we're actually running the dev branch server here. So it's slightly ahead, and it's basically just saying the agent's a little bit behind, and it's probably an idea to upgrade your agent. It's not something you'd normally get if you had the agent and server on the same version, but because we're on a dev system, we get some interesting vagaries. Upgrade is the final thing really to look at. This is still very much work in progress, and over the next 2 releases we'll be looking to improve this, but it very quickly tells you, hey, this single instance is on 4.4.2. It gives you the support dates, and it tells you there are a bunch of upgrades you could consider upgrading to. What we'll be introducing with 1.1 and ultimately in 1.2 is the ability to say, right, I want to upgrade to 4.4.9. I want the very latest version of 4.4, please. And it will give you a plan of these are the steps that you need to do to achieve that upgrade. Where possible, we'll provide the commands. The inevitable ask that we have from folks is, please, can I have a 1-button upgrade?
Yes, I just wanted to say
please,
that.
Please, can I have, and we'd love to give you one. The challenge is the first thing that you tend to find with the upgrade plan is, when we move from Neo4j 4 to Neo4j 5, when it's available in the future, the likelihood is Neo4j 4 runs at the moment on Java 11. Neo4j 5, I believe, will run on Java 17. So the first step in the upgrade plan is make sure you've installed Java 17. Those kind of activities are not something we really want to be dealing with from inside Ops Manager. That's much more of a Terraform or other deployment methodology. So that's why upgrade 1 button is really hard for us. So we'll do the best we can to simplify the process, but it's always going to be tricky. Yeah. What I will say is that we have great plans in the next major version of Neo4j 5 to make upgrades simpler, rather than having to go from 5.0 to 5.1 to 5.2 or whatever. You can go from any version of 5 to any later version of 5 directly. So it's a much simpler process. I think in terms of demo, we're probably pretty much out of time. I don't know, Alex, if you could just drop back to the Prezi for the last couple of slides for me. That'd be really handy.
Yep.
And then forward 2, I think. Yeah. So vision and near roadmap. So I have what I call 3 E's for the vision. Before we get to those, the plan is to release a new version of Ops Manager every 8 weeks. It's kind of in line with what we do with some of our other dev tools. It gives us a much faster release cadence and the ability to get better capabilities out quickly. But in each release, we'll try and improve the product in 3 ways. We'll try and enhance it, so maybe improve the user experience. So we spoke about a graphical view rather than the tabular view. That could be an example there. We want to enrich it. So rather than just saying, here's a graph of your page cache hit ratio, actually be able to define thresholds and generate alerts if it falls below a certain threshold. So adding that level of intelligence, and then even taking it one step further in the future and saying, actually, you need to add X megabytes of memory to your page cache to stop this happening. And the final one is adding more features, adding more capabilities into the product. So people will then say, hey, what's on the roadmap? So the final slide, I think it's the final slide, is our roadmap and what's coming up in the rest of 2022, which we have a fairly good handle on. There are 3 more releases scheduled for 2022, which will include improved user experience and graphical improvements based on the feedback we've had from our initial release. Optimized maintenance of the monitoring data. At the moment, we collect the data, but we don't really sort of keep it nicely house kept. So we'll introduce some capabilities to remove older data and keep the system nice and trim. At the moment, we don't support Docker and Kubernetes. We really want to, and that will come in the next release. We're working on that as we speak. We mentioned the upgrade and migration assistant, so improving that upgrade experience and giving the administrator a list of things to do. Support for newer releases of the Neo4j DBMS as and when they are made available. Configuration management, and this is very much something for the self-managed customers. Being able to sort of compare the Neo4j conf file contents across cluster members, for example, to highlight any differences, making it easier to dynamically set values. So say you want to suddenly turn on transaction logging inside the query logs on every member in the cluster, you can do that with 1 button click. And the one that everybody's waiting for is the ability to surface the query logs through Ops Manager and be able to see what query was causing that performance problem 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the potted thing. As with every roadmap, of course, these are aspirational at this point and not commitments.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
sorry, I have gone way over the scheduled time, which is
No,
like
that's
me.
fine. We don't have to be too strict about it. I think we said it's going to be a shorter session, but we still have time to do a few questions. So if you have any questions directly to Chris, then please post them in chat. I think Darja Chan, you posted one, but that's a little bit too off topic, I fear, today. So I think maybe we table that and put it. You come back around to one of the other streams we're doing, maybe on Monday when I'm back with Michael. But data version control is probably not a topic we can go into today. But I mean, the first question I have is maybe is if people are using this and want to give feedback or want to wish for some things for future development, where can people where can people submit or give share feedback, share insights, share what they want to do and what they um, how they can
Yeah,
learn
so
about
that's a
it.
great question. And sorry for the cough. When you were in the Ops Manager UI, and I don't know if you're able to jump back to it very quickly.
Of course, yes.
I have just lost you. Where have you gone?
Yeah. Here it is. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a send feedback, and that takes you to the canny feedback thing. So you can fill in your username and your company or whatever, and then provide feedback. And we've had one piece of feedback already with a user that was seeing something unexpected, which we're working on at the moment
Yeah.
with them. And we think it's the way they've set up their ops manager in this particular case, but we're waiting for some extra data. So that's one way. Alternatively, feed it in through the usual developer relations channels, and if it's obviously something to do with Ops Manager, or if you tag it as for Ops Manager, then I'm sure Michael or one of our friendly DevRel angels will wing it in our general direction, so
Yeah.
we can have a
Yeah.
look at it.
So maybe one more question is what are the requirements? Who is enabled to have the ops manager? What is needed to switch it on? And yeah, how can
Right.
people
So
get their hands on it?
that's a great question, and this is where people will get possibly a little bit upset. I don't know. Um, the initial target audience for this is for customers in the enterprise. So this is for customers with large scale deployments that are running inside corporates and have an existing enterprise edition license agreement with us, because these are the customers that have the multiple systems and large systems and need that level of help. So initially it is enterprise edition with a license only, self-managed with our first release. We're talking about cloud in the future. There are some features that we will introduce in this product that I believe will be very valuable for not just administrators, but also for developers. Possibly things around, query performance or index recommendations or whatever. So it's in my mind. There's no commitment yet, but in my mind to see whether there's any way that we can make a light version of this available at some point in the future, but it's not anywhere in the near time roadmap.
Okay, makes sense. So then again, I guess this also answers if this will be cloud environments. This is not the
Yes.
initial
So
scope.
Neo4j has an Aura cloud first, read Aura first inside the Neo technology inside Neo4j.
Yeah.
We set out the strategy for this with Emil last year, and that was one of our principles. We should go cloud first. However, at the time that we spoke to our Aura colleagues about getting Ops Manager enabled in the cloud, they were really busy with a whole bunch of security accreditation, and more importantly, getting our graph data science product available inside Aura as well.
Mhm.
So I don't believe it was the right call personally, because Ops Manager is my product, but from a business perspective, it was the right shout that we basically were deprioritized in favor of other high priority work.
Okay.
We are actively working with our Aura colleagues to find the right time to get Ops Manager into the cloud. And I think personally, it will be a two-step process. I think the first thing we'll do is we'll drop Ops Manager as a service as an available option for customers,
Mhm.
where we will host for the customer the the Ops Manager server component and the persistence database that stores all of that data in the UI. So all the customer has to worry about is just dropping the agent and connecting the agent up to that Ops Manager as a service. Really simplifies the implementation pathway for customers. The next step after that is to enable Aura instances or Aura database instances to be monitored by an Ops Manager as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And this will
I'd
then, I
like
guess,
to see
open up to other deployments, right? I mean, once this is done, it could also go on Docker, go on other.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
Docker support should be available in the next release
okay.
with Kubernetes. Helm may come a little bit later. In terms of other cloud, self-managed cloud, so bring your own license or running outside of Aura, but in the cloud providers, is
Yeah.
something that we will be able to support with the current product.
Okay. Cool. Sounds very good. I don't see any other questions. Anything else you wanna share? You you know wanna say?
From my perspective, I think the only thing is hearing the voice of the customer is we can't state how important it is to hear what's important to you as a customer of the database. Obviously, from an administration perspective, here is my focus, but generally, this is also true. So, if there are any, features that you'd like us to consider in the feedback, as we mentioned previously, if you've got any questions, if you've got any big burning issues, and data version control could be quite an interesting one to talk about, but not today. Um, then please just do keep them coming. We love to hear from customers. We love to hear what their problems are so that we can actually make sure that when we release the product, we fix the problems for them as best we can.
Yeah. One more question, maybe to wrap it up, is from Brian. Could Ops Manager be utilized to migrate databases across instances? Is this something that Ops Manager is potentially capable
It's something
for?
we want to, yeah, it is something that we want to do in the future. Um, and interestingly enough, the migrate in this case, as in moving something from one place to another place rather than moving from one version of Neo4j to the next major version of Neo4j. So migrate as in move is on the strategy with Emil. And the idea was that we would have Ops Manager to help customers migrate from self-managed into Aura, or if necessary, from Aura back into self-managed. So
Mhm.
yes, absolutely, it's something that's on our radar.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, with that, I think we are at an end of this short intro session. Links to the Ops Manager and to more detail technically as well as general overview will be in the video description. So if you want to read up about it, you can go there. Thank you, Chris, for taking the
Yeah,
time. Thank you for presenting and for showing us. Sorry, it didn't. I had to do the
I was
the
going to say
screen sharing
thank you,
part.
Alex, for presenting and doing the demo.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think that was more visible for
yeah,
for everybody. Yes, Deepali Ops Manager is available only for enterprise at the moment. So that's the limitation we have currently with the Ops Manager. And yeah, the next session I'm hosting will be actually this week on Thursday. Neo4j Live, another Neo4j Live. This time I have a guest talking about NetFrenzy. That's a tool based on Neo4j to visualize networks as an app. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun. It's gonna be Thursday this week, and yeah, with that, thank you all for watching. Take care, everybody, and see you soon.
have the good rest of the day. Thanks all.